In the early 2000s, the Watchtower came out with an article mentioning a book regarding the neutrality of the first century Christians and how they would remain neutral even in the face of death. So Jehovah's Witnesses use that in modern times, saying they should remain neutral and not salute the flag and so on. They quoted a book, and it sounded a lot like the movie Gladiator with Russell Crowe.
My name is Gladiator.
Then in 2013, the book came up again in the Watchtower study. The book is entitled Those About to Die by Daniel Mannix. Before getting into that book, I want to read something. It is from the 2011 yearbook of Jehovah's Witnesses. On page 9, under Tracing All Things with Accuracy. It says, Jesus said that the faithful slave would be discreet in giving the domestics their food at the proper time. Christ thus indicated that those who dispense this food would be conscientious, prudent, and discerning in providing spiritual food for the household of faith. In our time, Christ's anointed brothers used the writing department in Brooklyn, New York, to provide spiritual information in the form of magazines, brochures, books, and other printed and electronic material. This spiritual food, like physical food, has to be well prepared. Even Bible writers who were directed by Holy Spirit made sure that they recorded information that was thoroughly researched and accurate. Luke, for example, spoke to many eyewitnesses and traced all things from the start with accuracy. The writing department follows the pattern of tracing all things with accuracy. But where can reliable information be found? While the internet is a convenient and quick source of vast amounts of information, our researchers do not rely on blogs or poorly documented web entries written by unidentified or unqualified persons. That is about all Watchtower does, is have writers of unqualified persons. For example, Wikipedia, an online encyclopedia, warns that some articles on its own site contain significant misinformation, unencyclopedic content, or vandalism, adding that users need to be aware of this. Well, I think Watchtower contains a lot of significant misinformation, unencyclopedic content, and needs to warn its users to be aware of this. But back to the article. Thus, the writing department looks to standard reference works, articles written by recognized experts, and books produced by respected publishers. The writing department itself has a comprehensive library with thousands of books. Additionally, our researchers make use of nearby public and academic libraries. They use the UN's library. Back to article. They can also obtain specialized material from other sources by means of interlibrary loans. One of the large university libraries that our researchers use has some 5 million books, 58,000 periodicals, and 5.4 million microforms, and thousands of electronic databases. The writing department also maintains a large archive of clippings, experiences, and historical information that is constantly being updated with material from local sources as well as from our branch offices around the world. Of course, it is as Ecclesiastes 12:12 reminds us, to the making of many books there is no end. Even reputable sources may contain false information. So how do we check for quality, accuracy, and reliability? Take, for example, the following statement in the brochure, Was Life Created?, about spider silk being one of the strongest materials on Earth. If enlarged to the size of a football field, a web of dragon-lined silk 0.4 inch thick with strands 1.6 inches apart could stop a jumbo jet in flight. Although the source for this statement was a reputable science magazine, it was not the original source, and the original source was ambiguous. Therefore, it became necessary to contact the researcher who made the original statement and check how he reached this conclusion. Our researchers also had to find the formula and the information needed to calculate for themselves what impact a jumbo jet might have on a spiderweb the size of a football field. Many hours of research and meticulous calculations eventually confirmed the accuracy of this astounding piece of information. At times, though, even a seemingly reputable source may fail to corroborate details adequately. For example, Gandhi has been quoted as saying at his ashram religious retreat to Lord Irwin, "When your country and mine shall get together on the teachings laid down by Christ in this Sermon on the Mount, we shall have solved the problems not only of our countries, but those of the whole world." However, a thorough investigation of this statement revealed that there is no evidence that Lord Irwin ever visited Gandhi at his ashram, raising unanswered questions about where, when, and whether Gandhi made this statement. Hence, our publications do not use this particular quote anymore. Or you may have read about the incident involving Sir Isaac Newton and a model of the solar system. Reportedly, a visiting atheist asked who made it. When Newton answered, "Nobody," the atheist replied, "You must think I am a fool." Newton is then said to have told the atheist that his puny imitation of the much grander solar system proves that there has to be a designer or maker. As appealing as this account may be, historical sources as well as Newton's scholars and biographers cannot provide evidence that this conversation really occurred. Interestingly, the earliest references to this incident appeared in the early 1800s using not Newton's name, but the name of German scholar Anthesius Kircher. Consequently, our writing department no longer uses this account in our publications. Sometimes even minor statements require additional research to confirm their accuracy. In summary, the writing department insists on using only material that is accurate and truthful, even regarding seemingly insignificant details. As a result, the faithful and discreet slave can consistently supply spiritual food that brings honor to the God of truth, Jehovah. So what do we think about this 2011 book of the Watchtower, Tracing All Things in Accuracy? It's a bunch of garbage. But why would I say something like that? Well, let's look into this Daniel Mannix. The Watchtower Bible and Tract Society uses questionable authors and material to support their beliefs. For yourself, please research the book Those About to Die by Daniel Mannix. You can read many reviews of this book on Amazon. Also, please research the author of this book and what kind of person he is, and about the other books he has written. Here's a short clip of a man telling you about one of Daniel Mannix's books.
Daniel P. Mannix. I met him. It was just a dream come true, and I asked if I could publish this book, and this book, Freaks, had come into print very briefly, and yet here he was in high school. He was very tall, and because of this height, he was able to run away with a circus traveling sideshow and be a sword swallower and fire eater when he was in high school, going into college. And he also took pictures because most of these sideshows have disappeared. But one of the 2 books he produced on sideshows, I've published both of them in beautiful research editions, and I will try to show a few photos without shocking people too much. But this book captures a vanished era, a vanished folk culture called the sideshow. So, the book Freaks is still available from me.
Now, when you look into the book Those About to Die, is this a book that you would read with your friends? Is it something you would show your children? Is it something you would bring into the Kingdom Hall? Well, let's look at some of the things that this book talks about. This book is definitely not a book that Christians would read. It goes into gory details and the brutality of the Roman society and the Colosseum. It speaks about public executions and throwing women and children to animals to be eaten alive, and the training of human killers and professional animal killers, gambling on who would die first. in a public death match, public sexual orgies, including homosexuality and bestiality. It also tells about how women were punished by being raped by animals. It also tells the reader how these animals were trained to engage in having sex with human beings. This is a very sick and sadistic book. So how many times do you think the Watchtower has quoted from this terrible book? 13 times. If you have a pen, you might want to jot down. In a minute here, I will tell you each and every instance that they quoted from this book. One thing I noticed from reading some of the reviews on Amazon is a lot of people forget that this book is not facts. This man made a lot of this stuff up. And if you notice in the front of the book, he tells you where he got a lot of the things that he wrote about. Let me show you. If you see, he says that it would be impossible to name all the references, which it would be very possible. People make books all the time with all the references, but he said it would be impossible. So let's see what he says. He says, in many cases, only a single reference was taken from a book. However, some of the main works dealing with the games are listed in the bibliography. He says some of these sequences, especially in the description of the shows at the time of Carpophorus, are a compendium of many sources. In describing how Carpophorus trained the animals that had relations with women, I used Apuleius and also the technique employed by a Mexican gentleman I met in Tijuana who was making 16mm stag films on the subject. You see what I mean? This is not a purely factual book about history. He goes on to say, the description of the Ventors' battle with lions and tigers is a combination of original sources, J.A. Hunter's account of Maasai warriors spearing lions, and comments from Mel Kuntz and Marble Stark, both of whom are professional lion tamers. The crocodile wrestling is described by Strabo, but I added material told to me by a Seminole Indian who wrestled alligators in Florida. The gladiatorial combats are all taken from contemporary accounts or from graffiti wall drawings. In Pompeii, the bullfights are from graffiti of the fights, contemporary descriptions, the murals in Knossos, incidents I've observed in Spanish bullfights, and suggestions made by Pete Patterson, who is a rodeo clown. The battle between the Essadri and the Greek hoplites is a combination of Tacitus' descriptions of British war chariots, Hogarth's description of the hoplite phalanx in Philip and Alexander of Macedon, extracts from Mason's roping, and the manner in which British square was handled in the early 19th century. The elephant fights come from contemporary sources and Captain Fitzbernard, who saw war elephants in India. He goes on to tell how some of the conversations were his own notes from a wine shop there. As you see, this man is not a historian. He did not get all this information from back then. The way that they deal with animals today, a rodeo clown, maybe the way he trains his animals, in no way is the way that back in the Roman Colosseum they trained those animals. See, this is made up by this man. He is not a teacher. He is not a historian. He, as that man said earlier, was from a sideshow. He was a sword swallower. And also, he was a magician. If you remember, Watchtower said they didn't take information from strange sources or from people that weren't experts. Well, this man, once again, is in the occult. He was a magician. In fact, the book he wrote after Those About to Die was a biography of Aleister Crowley, who he just loved. Once again, this is another occultist, spiritist who the Watchtower is quoting, and they're also quoting from this book as if it is fact. Now, some might say that, they probably just quoted it a few times. Maybe they just didn't know. Well, the problem is they've quoted from 1960 all the way to today. That's plenty of time they've had to look into this man and the origins of this book. Here are some of the times they used them. June 1st, 1968, Watchtower, page 351 to 352, paragraph 8. Awake, December 8, 1972, page 18 through 23. Awake, December 8, 1975, page 3 through 4. Watchtower, August 5th, 1975, page 493 through 498. The book Jehovah's Witnesses and Education from 1983 under Flag Salutes, Anthems, and Voting. The Watchtower, May 1st, 1983, page 12 through 17. Also the Reasoning Book from 1989, page 269 to 276 under Neutrality. The Watchtower, January 15th, 1993, page 25 to 30, paragraph 21. Insight, Volume 1, from 1988, page 1195 through 1196, under Incense. The Watchtower, September 15th, 2002, page 21 through 25, paragraph 8. The book Learn from the Great Master, from 2003, page 146. And finally, the Watchtower, January 15th, 2013, page 7 through 11, paragraph 16. So from 1968 to 2013, that is 13 times the Watchtower traced all things with accuracy. And as we know, Jehovah's Witnesses are very concerned about the origins of things and where they come from, especially if they have to do with paganism. And they use the book, What Does the Bible Teach? And they use a picture in that book of a candy in a gutter, saying, would you eat the candy if it was laying in a gutter? So would you use something that comes from something dirty or gross or bad, as the Watchtower has done with this book? It's amazing how dishonest Watchtower is, because in the adult publications they call him by his name, Daniel Mannix, but in the children's book they call him a historian, because they know the kids will never find out that he's not a historian. That's completely dishonest. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. I apologize for taking so long. It took quite a while to make this, but I hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, everyone, bye.